So, good evening. This is Mental Health Awareness. I am Timothy Wright. Hey, y'all, along with my cousin. Hey, we are live. This is my cousin, Quintera Wright. Quintera, it's been a long time.
Yep. I agree. It's been a while since we've done in person, because the last time I think I was here in April.
Right.
And it's been a while since we kind of took a little bit of a break. All of our schedules was a little chaotic, but I'm happy we were able to make it happen tonight.
So, look, if you are watching from Facebook, like and share. If you are watching from YouTube, hey, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you will get the notification every time we go live. Hey, y'all, you know, it's been a while since we've been on again, Quintera. We want to say hi to Ebony and Michelle.
Yes.
They normally are with us, but tonight they're not. It's been a big conflict with our schedules. Y'all got second jobs,
Yes.
you know. So we're that's good. That's good. But hey, we want to look at this because again, so much has happened since we last had a mental health awareness segment.
Right.
And one thing what we've seen is, you know, a month ago, where there was a young man in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee is like the 27th or 28th or 29th largest city in the United States, and the whole city was on lockdown. One 19-year-old guy goes in stores and AutoZone and just randomly shooting people,
Right.
hijacking cars, and it ended him not dying. But then, you know, as we be dealing with mental health issues, we can easily say that was a mental health issue as well.
For sure.
So what you think about that?
Most definitely. You know, it definitely was. It's not typical. Neurologically, your brain doesn't think like, okay, let me go out here and hurt some people or harm some people today. Like, you're not necessarily wired that way, but you can have some issues around dealing with stress management, and sometimes you're triggered by something that sometimes you overreact in a way, and then later you're like, oh my goodness, maybe I could have handled that differently.
Right.
But definitely to all those people who were injured, who was hurt, or those who were even murdered, definitely our hearts goes out to you guys for sure.
Right, right. And then also, you know, there was some copycat right here in Greenville, Mississippi. There was a young man arrested for such threats as the young man. He actually, the young man in Memphis carried everything out, but this guy didn't. He actually gave himself up, and the feds came, got him, and we actually seen some of it in Ruville as well, where they called and threatening to shoot up the school. So it's so much going on, and a lot of it we definitely can relate to mental health.
For sure.
But tonight let's kind of take a little turn and talk about communication as it relates to mental health.
Well, communication is important. You know, we all communicate in some form of way, whether that is verbal or nonverbal. You know, communication is a good thing. It's a key to how we maneuver through our day, every single day, how we talk to people, how we get certain needs met, and however. But communication is vital, for sure.
Right. So, I mean, we know that it's very important, and I think a lot of times we can put ourselves in positions that if we are actually communicating, you know, we begin to communicate our feelings, you know, our thought process, and then there are people who are able to help us to deal with the way we think or the thought process we have, that it can be for the better. So let's look at the fact that a lot of times we have poor communication skills. That's not just with mental health as well. We're talking about with marriages. We're talking about on our jobs, where we can have poor communication, and it leads to other problems. So let's just talk about poor communications and mental health.
Yes. So communication is important, and it relates to our relationships with other people.
Right.
Like you said before, it is important because it is divided into categories, really. And there are 3 categories when it comes to the relationships that we have with other people. And those can be platonic, professional, or personal.
Okay.
Platonic relationships are those that you have, you know, with someone who you're familiar with, also just your friendships here and there. Then you also have your professional relationships, which are with colleagues or people that you work with in some way or another. And then you have your personal relationships, and so those are considered with those who that may be your significant other.
Right, right. But then when we're looking at poor communication, in the sense that we're not communicating properly with those in those 3 areas where perhaps we don't set boundaries because we're not communicating.
Right.
You know, there ought to be some limits and stuff like that.
Sure.
But if we're not communicating, then the person might not know. But then let's look at the fact that on our jobs, we don't know what people are going through. We've been honest with ourselves. COVID has turned a circle on us, and our mental health has actually come to the forefront. You know, I'm a witness to that. So how do we deal with poor communication in our workplace?
Poor communication can be looked at as objective or subjective. But I think the most important thing when you're looking at yourself and when it comes to in the workplace, you have to first look at, okay, how am I communicating to other people, and how does that make me feel? You know, when it comes to communication, you know, there are many different styles to understanding someone, or when you're listening to someone or hearing someone, because hearing someone and listening to someone are 2 different things. Like, you know what I mean? You have some people say, I hear you, you know, like, and then sometimes they're responding before you can even get something out or however. But I think when you really take the time to listen to someone, you're really hearing everything that they're telling you, and then you're able to make a wise choice and decision about that. But when it comes to communication, a lot of people have a hard time voicing their communications. Like, you know, they're having a hard time saying, hey, I need help with this, or hey, I feel overworked, or I feel overwhelmed. Hey, I want to create some boundaries because I don't want you to call me after 6 o'clock tonight. Sometimes people become passive aggressive, or they have this nonverbal language where they're gesturing, I'm feeling annoyed, or I don't want to be bothered, or what you're doing is unprofessional. So communication, I think, is super important, but I think the biggest step to doing that is not feeling prideful, feeling like you're in a safe space where you can say any and everything that you need to when it comes off in a way where you can be heard.
Right. So again, there's a lot of things we've been talking about as it relates to mental health as well. And I think that's one of the things we've been dealing with as well, but not putting it in the forefront, where communication is definitely necessary. Mm-hmm. Again, personal, platonic, professional. We need to deal with them on every level.
For sure.
Again, on our jobs, there ought to be boundaries. In our relationship, there ought to be boundaries. With our acquaintance, mm-hmm. definitely boundaries. And we're seeing that where when people are not setting boundaries and not communicating properly, we see how things get out of hand. Mm-hmm. So then I think one of the things we need to look at as well is the fact that what's some poor communication examples?
Okay. Poor communication examples can simply be, we do a lot of communication examples when it comes to just even being in a relationship with significant others, or however, it could be, hey, I worked all day and now I have to come home and cook all this food, but you've been home all day. So then you just come in and you're like slamming groceries down on the counter. You don't want to talk to anyone, but that person could have said, hey, could you just help me with dinner tonight? Poor communication could look like, hey, I'm giving you another task at work on top of the 60,000 things that you already have going on, and I need you to get it done by the end of the day. And instead of you saying, hey, I feel overwhelmed, I'm a little frustrated, can you get somebody else to assist me with half of the tasks that I have? Or can you give me an extension for whatever it is that I need to complete? So there are so many ways that we can communicate. I think it's really hard when you don't have a safe space to do that.
Right. Now Denise is on the other side. She's our camera lady tonight, right? and I think she can identify with the fact that since the kids been gone,
yeah.
I cook less. But when they were here, I was cooking pretty much every day. So she's coming home now to no food.
Uh-huh.
So we got to work on that, where we start our communication again.
That's right.
So and that I never thought of it either, Denise, as that. So we're going to work on that. We're going to cook a meal together.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. And then I think one thing we need to look at too, and Denise know I'm pretty much guilty of this, because sometimes we are, when it comes to communication as well, communication don't mean you're the one doing all the talking.
For sure.
Also in that, communication also means that you have to be the listener.
For sure.
So sometimes we create bad listening. We're bad listeners.
Sure.
I'm guilty of that, because I always trying to finish somebody's sentence. Mm-hmm. I'm always, well, this is not how you should feel, and I'm guilty of that. Mm-hmm. So I've come up with this, and I shared this with Denise some time ago, that I'm trying to put myself in a position that I'm listening, not to respond, mm-hmm. But listening to learn.
For sure. All
right. So that's where we have to be at when it comes to that. So what you think about that, as far as us being, what makes us, I know how we can be bad listeners, but what can make us better listeners? Because again, I want to be in a position that I want to hear the person out and make proper adjustment to what I'm doing, mm-hmm. So both our lives can be better.
For sure. Listening is important. Being able to come to someone, and it already takes a lot for a person to already feel like that they can voice their opinion, unless you create a safe space for them. So I think when someone feels safe enough to say, hey, I am tired, I am frustrated, I am overwhelmed, I think is important. Because when a person don't feel safe talking to you, then there's a phobia. Oh, I don't want to talk to this person because this is how they're going to react, you know? Or I'm feeling anxious about communicating because this is the reaction I know I'm going to get. Or I don't know what type of reaction I will receive. So you have some people who really struggle with communicating due to some past traumas or due to some experiences that they've had in the past. And it can set up phobias. It can set up anxiety. You can have, issues with communicating. And if you already have a mental health diagnosis already, like bipolar, dementia, different things like that, it makes it even harder to communicate, because maybe you may have loss of memory, maybe you're, racing thoughts. There's so many different things that contributes to people who already have a mental health diagnosis, right. So imagine the people, who don't have a diagnosis or a disorder or anything like that. I think it's important when you create a space where people feel comfortable and be able to, like you said, just listen, just hear a person out. Like, you don't have to respond to anything. And then you want to make sure that when a person does come to you, that you don't give the body language of you don't want to be there, or I don't want to hear what you have to say, or I done told you this over and over again. It's going to be the same expectation. I think the best thing to do is you put yourself in that person's shoes, and then you respond the way that you would want someone to respond to you, even if it's uncomfortable.
Right. So we're looking at the fact that poor communication can actually lead to unhealthy relationships, and then that other person can possibly develop some mental health issues. Yeah, depression. Imagine a child. I see this a lot in the LGBT community because I work with children, a part of the LGBT community, who don't feel comfortable talking to their parents about either coming out, wanting to be transgender, or feeling like they want to be a girl or they want to be a boy and don't know how their parents will accept them. Sometimes you have parents who automatically like, I don't want you in my house. I don't want you around my family. I will not accept you if this is what you want to do. But I'm sure it already was hard enough for that child even to feel like I can come to my mom or come to my dad and I could say like, hey, this is what I want to do. And this is how I feel. It's challenging enough in itself. And I see that a lot with children become, get anxiety, go through depression because of these are the words that my parents told me. And regardless to what you say in the moment, whether it's something that came off harsh or something you didn't necessarily mean, words follow you. Right. I always say like physical abuse is way different than verbal abuse. Physical abuse, you break a bone, you get bruises, you heal, you're fine. Verbal abuse, it lasts, it stays with you, it lingers, Right. So again, we're talking about the fact that poor communication can lead again to unhealthy relationships, and then it can lead to that person that is feeling can lead to depression, and it can lead to other things, even suicide. And we've actually seen a lot of that in our communities, especially when I say communities, I'm talking about our black communities, with our young males in the age of 18 to 24, and we've been experiencing that. And most of the time, from talking to most of the families, especially one in Rouville, it was just the fact that it was poor communication, and they didn't know. They knew it was some mental issues, but it wasn't to the point where they would actually try to do something about it. So in the communication, we learn to listen again, and then we hear the person, and then we seek help for that person. So we're seeing how important communication is as opposed to poor communication. I just believe that if you're in a relationship, a family relationship, whatever, you need to have healthy communication, and that's where we're trying to get to, so it won't lead to mental stress. You're mentally stressed out. You're depressed. You're thinking about suicide or even murder.
Or even murder, right?
So, because we've seen that as well,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes let's look at the fact that being passive aggressive. You know,
Usually there are two extremes.
right?
Usually a person become very isolated, or a person become aggressive,
Right.
and that can be passive, or it could be non-passive. But I think when a person becomes, isolated, because
Right.
sometimes people say, "Oh, that's a good thing, that's a bad thing," But I feel like when a person becomes isolated, I think it's important to always check in on them, make sure they're okay. Hey, I know the conversation didn't go well, or it didn't turn out to the way that you expected it to go, but I just want to check in on you. And sometimes you have people who just need their space.
Right.
Like, hey, I need to de-escalate myself. You're upset. I'm upset. It's going to go in one ear and out the other.
Right.
We're not going to be able to hear each other. So I'm going to isolate a little bit so I feel like I'm in a space where I can communicate with you.
Right.
And then you have some people who just become aggressive. People can be passive aggressive, whether they're like, hey, I'm not going to pack your lunch. And I normally pack your lunch every day because I'm upset with you today. Or, I know I can help you get this work done, but I'm not going to help you today because you made me mad last week. So passive aggressive is interesting because it's very damaging.
Right.
Is very damaging in many ways, and when you become passive aggressive, it's just, I think it's dangerous, you know what I mean, because of the simple fact that you can deteriorate or you can damage relationships that you've had with people for long periods of time, or relationships that you just recently recreated with someone. And sometimes everybody is different. Everybody receives things differently. And then sometimes, you have people who like, okay, you did this to me one time and I'm done with you.
Right.
And you have some people who's like, you did this to me multiple times. I understand that this is your character and these are the things that you do. And then they can forgive you. But if you don't have people that's in your corner who really understands that this is the way that you communicate when you're frustrated and when you're upset, then it could affect your relationship forever.
Right. Right. So let's pause. For station identification. Hey, again, you're here with us. I'm Timothy Wright with Mental Health Awareness, along with my cousin Quintera Wright. If you are watching again from Facebook, like and share this with your friends. Share this with your family. If you're watching from YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, you will get the notification every time we go live. So we've been talking about really poor communication as it relates to mental health. And one of the things we need to understand is this, that words are seeds.
Yeah.
Words are seeds. And sometimes either we're planting good seeds or we're planting bad seeds.
For sure.
So we have to be careful with that, because that can lead to negative emphasis.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. So like what we were saying before, is that, when you do have poor communication, it can affect your relationships, whether that is platonic, professionally, or personally. Being able to communicate is important. We all communicate to each other in some way, form, or another. And being able to have a safe space is just as important.
Right.
As much as I talk about communication, I talk about safety even more. Because if you have someone who does not feel safe to communicate their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, it's going to lead to stress.
Right. Right.
And how people deal with stress is very different. Every individual deals with stress in a different way.
Right. So again, that's the key of learning how to communicate. So this is not going to be a long, we really wanted to do a pop-up, let you know, hey, we're still here. And let's look at this. How do we communicate better then?
Ways to communicate better is to feel confident in yourself.
Okay.
You know, feel confident in yourself to say, hey, I am upset. I am frustrated. I did not like that meal you cooked last night. Or I didn't like when you threw my clothes down on the bed. Or, you know, like I'm feeling like I can't work with this person even though they just started, because we're two different people. You know, we think differently, you know. It's just as important even in a workspace to communicate. I always say like work is important because you spend almost just about the same or more of your waking time at work than you do at home.
Right.
When you're at home, you're only here in the morning or you're only home at night for a certain period of time, and then of that time you are asleep. So if your work-life balance is not set, then you're going to be stressed at work if you don't create a space where you feel comfortable.
Right.
Work-life balance is so important, and feeling safe at work is important because, like I said before, you spend majority of your time at work around other people, some that you know, some that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And everybody is different. You know, a lot of people have stress in their home life. They bring it to work. You know, they have stress in their children's life. They bring that to work. You know, they have stress in their family life. You know, maybe somebody may be ill or sick, and then they bring that to work. So imagine all these different people having so many different issues going on, and you don't even know it.
Right. Right.
You know, and then you come to work and you're thinking you're going to have a good day, but at the end of the day, you may not, because everybody have their own challenges and their own struggles. And if your work life is not regulated, then it affects everything else.
Right. So communication is key. Mm-hmm. And we're doing this for better mental health.
For sure.
Because again, all mental health is not bad. Mm-hmm. And the fact that when we learn to better communicate with all levels of that, you know, again, platonic, professional, mm-hmm. personal, mm-hmm. When we learn to communicate on all three levels, again, with those boundaries, mm-hmm. and it's actually a healthy conversation, mm-hmm. you know, and it's nothing wrong with telling people how you actually feel, mm-hmm. But we need to learn to communicate it properly as well.
For sure.
Yes.
You know, I'm a big believer of it's not what you say, but how you say it.
Right.
You know,
I'm working on that.
So you can say anything, you know, but I think it's in delivery. It's how you deliver the message and who you're delivering the message to. You know, so the way you may communicate with your mom may look very different how you communicate with your supervisor. It may look very different how you communicate with your spouse, but being able to deliver that message where it can be heard in a safe space.
Right, right. So I think a lot of times when we talk about self-care, mm-hmm. Self-care goes a long way besides doing these type of exercises, walking, and we don't exercise our brain. Mm-hmm. And one of those ways is to communicate. Mm-hmm. And the more we communicate, the more we'll see how easy it is for us to express ourselves. That again, you won't put yourself in a position that it leads to bad mental health, where you again becoming depressed, having some type of anxiety, mm-hmm. Whatever that will be going, some type of phobia, because again, we can't create phobia when there's poor communication. Mm-hmm. Because again, the person who wants to communicate to us, we might not be that great listener.
For sure.
Yeah.
And one of the tools that I have shared with other people is when there is something you want to communicate to something, just go to the mirror, have that conversation with yourself first, and then have that conversation with someone else. So if there's something that is on your chest, on your mind, you want to get it out, go talk to yourself. It's okay to talk to yourself in the mirror. It's okay. Like, I know people like, I'm not going to go talk to myself. But literally, go have that conversation to yourself in the mirror. Practice it out. And then when you get in front of that person, you're able to feel a little bit more comfortable having that same conversation that you just had to yourself. Mm. It's a really unique tool. It works really, really well. And you can practice having that conversation over and over and over and over until you feel comfortable.
Right.
I've known people who practiced in the mirror for 2 weeks and said, okay, I'm ready. You know?
So, look, we're pressing for time. We're trying to keep it under 30 minutes. And we're here with Mental Health Awareness. I'm Timothy Wright, along with my cousin Quintera Wright. Let us know your story as far as are you a great communicator? Are you a great listener? You know, because a lot of times it's more than just you talking, but can you listen?
For sure.
And then how do you gather all that from communicating to listening? Because it works hands in hand. So, Quintera, you want to give us some final words before we get out of here?
No, I'm just happy that we can get this started back again on a more regular basis. I know that this has been super beneficial for a lot of individuals, like Pastor Wright, Tim was saying before. If you have any questions, send us whatever you have, and we will try to answer them to the best of our ability.
Right. So much is going on.
Yeah.
Communication is the key. We said this before. Words are seeds. So we need to be careful. What type of seeds are we planting in other people's heart? Hey, y'all, this has been Mental Health Awareness again with Timothy Wright, along with our cousin Quintera Wright, along with our camera lady, First Lady, Sister Denise.
That's right.
Rochelle McNeil Wright, working the camera, y'all. We're so grateful for her. Hey, y'all, enjoy the rest of your night and sleep well. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.